Pardon?
Just let me know when.
Right now.
Okay. Greetings. Welcome to Hamirpur Tales. Hamirpur Tales is seen on Baba Zoom Monday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern in the United States. Hamirpur District is in northern India in Uttar Pradesh state. And Meher Baba first visited Hamirpur District in 1952. 2 years later, in 1954, Meher Baba visited Hamirpur district again, and it was there in 1954 that Meher Baba first declared himself the avatar of the age. And symbolically, Meher Baba often talked about Hamirpur as his heart. My name is Richard Leveton. Tonight I'm pinch hitting for Alan Ray Powell, who will be wearing a different hat tonight. He'll be sharing with us some of his Hamirpur tales, and I'll be asking some questions. In fact, I'll start out with a couple of questions right now. Hi, Alan Ray. I've got a couple of questions. The first is, when did the word Hamirpur first enter your consciousness? And secondly, can you share with us a little bit about, or a lot of your first trip to Hamirpur?
Thank you, Richard, and thank you for the detailed introduction, telling us about Baba's two darshan tours, one in November of 52 and then in February of 54. So I had just mostly completed building a cabin on 100 acres of land in Athens, Maine, in the fall of 73. And I decided I deserved a reward, and that was my first trip to India, to Meherdeep. And along the way, Maine to Myrtle Beach, and then flying out of New York, stopped along and visited Baba lovers along the way. And the first stop after leaving Athens, Maine was 10R Boston Street. Upstairs, on one side lived Claire, and on the other side, Robert and Judith Aarons. And downstairs, none other than Richard Leveton. And I had been a frequent guest at 10R Boston Street, either upstairs or downstairs, as I had a bakery, a Pinch of Love Natural Foods Bakery in Putney, Vermont. And the bakery sent our delivery truck to Greater Boston every week. And I personally made that trek every other week. And I timed it so that I could spend a little time on Thursday night with Charles Haynes at his Inman Square Baba Center. And then either Friday evening or Saturday morning, there would be a Baba gathering at the Harvard Divinity School. And Charles was a student there, as were many other Baba lovers. So while I was at 10R Boston, early November of 73, and I stayed with Richard. Richard had just come back from his first trip to India, and he mentioned to me that he had a lot of incense with him that he brought back from India, and that he was selling it to offset his $600 plane ticket. We chatted, and he asked me if I'd ever heard of Pukar. And I can't say that I had, but Richard started talking to me a little bit about Hamirpur. So that's when I first learned of Hamirpur. And Richard said to me, if you're still at Meherdeep at the time of Amartithi, seek out Pukar and ask him if you can accompany him back to Hamirpur. And so I had the blessed good fortune of being Pukar's companion for almost 2 weeks. And unlike Richard, who went to Hamirpur on tour with Pukar in 72, and Ron, who was with us, who went in 73, I went with Pukar. It was just Pukar and I. And that was an incredibly rare treat and experience. So it was on a Sunday evening shortly after Amartithi in 74 that we arranged to meet. And Pukar came and stopped off at the Dowlet. And a lot of us Westerners stayed at the Dowlet in those early days. It was located across from the trust office, and it had 10 little cabins, all connected, 10 little bungalows with a U-shaped common eating area. The owner, Pilu, was a Baba lover, and she tempered the food that she prepared lovingly for the Western palate. Yes, Indian spices, but not so hot. I want to backtrack just a little bit to when I initially met Pukar at Amartithi, and when I approached him, he actually said, "Give me till tomorrow. Meet me at the dune down by the Dooney, and I'll let you know. I'll let you know whether it's going to work for you to accompany me to Hamirpur or not." So we meet the next morning, and this is what Pukar had to say. He said, "You can come with me. However, first we need to make a stop in Ville Parle, which is outside of Mumbai, or what then we were calling Bombay." And so I said, "Sure." And he arranged to pick me up at the Dowlet, and so we'll take it from there again. So Pukar picks me up, and he wants to go to one of his favorite restaurants in the heart of the Ahmednagar Bazaar. So Pukar, as you know, is a very big man, almost even by Western standards. And he likes to eat. I couldn't keep up with him, but I certainly enjoyed the meal nonetheless. And we headed along our way. The very next morning, I woke up and I discovered that I had dysentery. First meal away from the safety net that Pilu had created for us at the Dowlet, and I get dysentery. And you know, perhaps it was a blessing in disguise to the degree that it allowed me to stay grounded, or more grounded, during the time I was with Pukar. Otherwise, I just might have flown away. It was such a magnificent experience. So we get on a train, and we make it. It's about could have been like a 24-hour train ride to Hamirpur district. And we go, I don't know, 15, 16 hours. We stop at 3 a.m. and we're in the exchange town where a lot of trains meet of Jhansi. And we had to transfer trains there. So Pukar says, "Let's go." So I didn't know where we were going. And all of a sudden, at about 3 in the morning, we're knocking on a door. And it turns out it is a Baba lover. And he invites us in, of course, embraces Pukar, gives me a very warm welcome. And in spite of the fact that I wasn't the least bit hungry, it was important that I honor my host and tekana, have something to eat, and of course, chai along with it. And no matter where we went, as we toured Baba's special places in Hamirpur, food and or chai was always offered, and it was always embraced and accepted, yet somewhat of a challenge because of the dysentery. In any event, we spent an hour or two with Narayan Das Kar, and as we're leaving, he starts weeping. And I was so touched. He said it's the first time a Westerner had ever been to his home, and first time a Baba lover from the West had ever been to his home. And for him, it was as if Baba had graced his humble abode. Wow. So we're back on the train and make it to Hamirpur. Now, Pukar took me around to any number of places. I got to stay at Pukar's family compound, and the property was actually owned by Pukar's mother. Across the street lived Pukar's maternal uncle, B.P. Nigam, Bani Prasad Nigam. Bani Prasad Nigam was an advocate, a lawyer. And Baba, in 1952, when he came to the town of Hamirpur, he blessed B.P. Nigam. He went to his home and Baba said that he had been there before. On some level, this was not such a shock and surprise to B.P. Nigam, because B.P. Nigam, a year or two before Baba had entered the district of Hamirpur, when he heard Meher Baba's name, he immediately accepted him. And this infuriated Pukar. At the time, Pukar was very, very involved in communistic politics there in the district. And he was very opposed to Meher Baba initially. So that was a very, very unique experience. And Pukar dropped me off a few days later at the home of Keshav Narayan Nigam. And when he dropped me off, it was around February 11th or 12th. Again, we're talking 1974 when I was there. He didn't go in and greet Keshav. And I thought that was a bit unusual, a bit strange or bizarre. But once I was with Keshav, I no longer was thinking about that encounter or non-encounter between Pukar and Keshav. And it was only later, when after 2003, that Keshav Nigam's daughter, a PhD scientist, Jyoti, published and released Keshav Narayan Nigam's biography. And it was then in reading his biography that I learned that Pukar and Keshav had a falling out. That while Keshav was 110% devoted to Baba, Pukar Sanskars was such that he still had some interest in politics. I want to take a minute or two to afford folks the opportunity to appreciate when Pukar first encountered Mayor Baba. And that date was October 16th of 1950. 1 year exactly after Mayor Baba stepped into the new life. He was in Mahabaleshwar at Aga Khan's bungalow and was actually a stable. And he invited 75 of his close lovers to be with him there while he stepped out of the new life for just 4 hours. Now, that gathering had a precise starting time, either 7 or 8 a.m. And Gustaji had gone outside to piddle. And he wasn't back inside the gate. And so Alabar, or one of the other Mandali, had left it a little bit open, and a couple of people slipped in. And Baba was furious. And in his anger, he said, I have broken my own rules for the new life. And he called one of the Mandali, he said, slap me. He gave him a soft slap. Turned to another one of the Mandali, who slapped him a little harder. Then Baba called the police inspector from Karachi. And I apologize for not refreshing in advance what his name is. Ron, do you remember his name?
I can't think of it. Sorry. If I heard it, I'd know it, but I can't.
Yeah, well, that's
I'm not remembering names right now.
In any event.
Yeah.
He called on this police inspector from Karachi and said, now you slap me. And he gave him a hard slap. Slap was so hard that Baba turned red as a beet, and yet he was smiling. And Pukar was taking this all in. And it just totally blew his mind. And Pukar was there to denounce Baba as a fraud, even so far as to potentially kill him. And yet, he found himself walking up to Baba, taking off all his clothes and handing his clothing to Baba. And in this gesture, Pukar was saying, I surrender. Take me into the Mandali. And Pukar and Baba said to him, well, you want to be one of the Mandali? Fine. Here are your first 2 orders. Put your clothes back on. And now, take that megaphone of yours that you've been going around to villages in with your entourage, telling people all about communism. Now you take that same megaphone, that same entourage, and you go back and tell them about Sri Meherdeep Baba. This was 1950. Avatar had not come forward just yet. Anyway, this was Pukar's first encounter with Mayor Baba. And now back to being with Pukar at his, you got a question, Betty?
Oh, the name of that police inspector was Minu Karas. Go
Of
ahead.
course.
Yeah.
How could I forget? And his dear daughter is there in Florida, and she's very active in the Tuesday night Florida Baba meetings, which when I was living there in Florida, I participated in as well.
And
Thank you so much, Betty. Minu Karas, yes. And so, met Pukar's wife, his two sons, Meherdeep and Mayor Prakash. And Meherdeep went to Baba during the pandemic. And Mayor Prakash Nigam Pukar is still there in Hamirpur and daily leads the Arti at Meherdeep, where they have a beautiful statue of Baba. And Baba resisted during the 60s. Pukar went to Baba many times and asked if he could start a center and a community there in the town, the district of Hamirpur. And finally, after saying no several times, Baba finally yielded. And when I was there, both in 74 and 77, there were a couple of dozen families there. They started a school. Gulab Panchal was making plans to move from Ville Parle there to be part of that community and to support Pukar with the Baba work there. I skipped over our stop in Ville Parle, and it is most noteworthy. So we went to Ville Parle to visit Gulab Panchal, and he lived in a two-room dwelling. I guess you'd call it a house. One room was the kitchen, and the other was the living room. And when I say living room, well, when it came time to sleep, it was a dirt floor, and there were perhaps 10 of us spread out on the dirt floor for a couple of nights there in Ville Parle. Now, perhaps sleeping next to me, unbeknownst to me, was Prakash. Prakash Panchal, who ended up in Meherdeep, and actually he also just passed, I believe, due to COVID as well, due to the pandemic. In any event, I was in excruciating pain, and Gulab told me about the homeopathic pharmacy, and I pretty much crawled there. And I had to wait to be seen. There were a lot of mothers there with their infants, and I had to wait to be seen. I still remember the remedy that I was given, colocynth. And while it didn't totally take away the dysentery, once I started taking the colocynth, it mellowed so that I could be present. And that was an incredible blessing. So here we are. I mentioned that here we are in the town of Hamirpur, and there's the darshan. Now, back in October of 54, Baba called a group of about 7 of the most active Hamirpur lovers to Meherdeep. Amongst Pukar, Keshav Narayan Nigam, Shri Pasai, and a couple of others, possibly even Mukund Lal. In any event, one of those individuals who came along was Hiralal. Now, Hiralal was a shepherd in the village of Naranga, and there were a couple of waves when many of those villagers got Baba bug and got drawn into Baba's net of love. In this first wave, Hiralal preferred to continue to chant the name of Ram, Lord Ram. He was a shepherd, and he would tend his flock, and he would do his best to take Lord Ram's name all day. He was not drawn to Baba with that first wave. When the second wave hit in the village of Naranga, not only was he all in, but he was on fire. And Hiralal is only about 5 feet tall, and he's back then was an amazing dancer and singer. So he goes, everyone is getting their hugs from Baba at Meherdeep, and it's Hiralal's turn. Hiralal hugs Baba, and he refuses to let go. Eric says, "Let go or I'm going to beat you with my shoe." Hiralal pays no attention. They finally pulled him off. And Baba looks at him very sternly. And he says, "You're out. You're off the planning team. And when I come to the town of Hamirpur, you will not receive darshan." Wow. Can you imagine the pain that Hiralal was experiencing? Kind of screwed up. So here we are, November 18th. Baba's giving darshan. He had just come into the town, and each year, the town of Hamirpur is situated at the conjoining of two rivers, the Bidwa and the Jumna. And each year, the monsoons take out the bridge. It's a suspension bridge. And they were just able to rebuild it in time for Baba's arrival. And Baba decided to go across the suspension bridge in his car. And when they got to the other side, the bridge collapsed. Baba made it. And he made it to the town so that they could hold the first darshan as scheduled. Well, Hiralal, after he took a bullock cart from the village of Naranga to the town, the city of Rat, 8 kilometers away, R-A-T-H, Rat, he walked 50 kilometers or more from Rat to Hamirpur so that he could be there for that darshan. Now, Baba had told him not to be there, so he had to give the mandali the slip. And he was unsuccessful. And Baba saw that he was there, and he said to him, "Go back home. You are not to receive darshan." So, on November 26th, Baba's last full day in the district of Hamirpur, he gave darshan at Rabindranath Junior College to over 50,000 people. It was the largest darshan in the district. And against Baba's orders, there was Hiralal again. This time he gives the mandali the slip, and he's just a few feet from Baba, and Baba puts up his stop. And Hiralal stops. And he said, "I told you, no darshan now." what I'm going to do for you, you go home, and I, when I get to Naranga, will come to your home and give you darshan there. Well, that was a sweet and bitter encounter that Hirlal had. And so he goes home and awaits Baba's arrival. Well, some of you have heard of dacoits, rebels, robbers, what have you. The only way to get to Naranga from Rat was via bullock cart. And so Baba and his entourage, they had several bullock carts. And there's a little bridge that needs to be crossed to enter the town of Hamirpur. Guess what? The dacoits got there first. They wiped out the bridge. Baba gave darshan under a neem tree outside the city gate. And Hirlal did not get his darshan. 52. To wrap up Hirlal's portion, Baba, when he went back to Hamirpur in 54, not only remembered Hirlal, but went to Hirlal's house and gave him darshan at his own house. Bob Brown says, wait 1,000 years for you, a lonely lifetime or two. So I guess you put it into perspective. I guess it's not all that. Hirlal got what he wanted, just not in the time that he wanted it. So Pukar had told me this story, and Naranga was on we were planning to go to Naranga. It was on our little tour. Before we got there, we stopped in Merwa Maristana. And prior to reaching Merwa Maristana, we made a couple of stops in little villages along the way. And I'm referring now to my journal, going back just a sentence or two about B.P. Nigam. On 18th of November in 1952, the very day that Baba arrived in the district, Baba stopped at the house of B.P. Nigam, thumped his hand on an armchair, and said he'd been there before in a previous incarnation. Wow. So, moving forward here, Pukar told another tale. And when he was in the village of Engota, Pukar saw Baba in a dream in childhood as Baba. In this dream, Pukar said that Pukar was with him as Hanuman. Now, when I went back to Hamirpur for the third time in 2019, after the 50th Amar Tithi celebration at Meherdeep, and Meherdeep was my host, along with his son, Pukar's grandson, Samarpit Nigam. Samarpit Nigam Pukar. So, I asked Meherdeep point blank, did Baba say Pukar was like Hanuman, or that Pukar was a reincarnation of Hanuman? And Meherdeep said he was Hanuman. So there you have it. Hanuman was the perfect monkey servant god of Lord Ram. And we see in the films, the videos from Guru Prasad and from Mirzad, Pukar offering himself as a chair for Baba to sit on as part of his service to Baba. Any questions come up so far?
Thank you, Alan. I'd like to just add one quick thing. First of all, thank you. And even though by my count, I think you missed or forgot one name out of about 100 different people who you mentioned from 50 years ago, in my opinion, your memory is quite stellar, and your Hamirpur tales and stories are wonderful. You've certainly made my job a lot easier. Um, I I'll be happy to stop for a moment and ask if there are any other questions before I may ask you another question. Any other questions? If not, you and I have talked off Baba Zoom about Hamirpur on a few occasions, and you've shared with me the story of, I guess, what's known as the 14 boys. Would you want to share that, please?
Oh, yes. I certainly do. And don't let me forget to talk about how it is that Pukar came to my house.
Mhm.
I had stayed at his house, so I had to return the favor, and how that happened.
Alan,
So, yes.
can I just interject here, Alal? That's the same dear little man that comes to RT and sings repetitively. I forget what he sings, but it's really, is that
Well,
about the same person? Yeah. That's him. Right.
he left his beautiful wife, Mirabai, there in Hamirpur and moved to Lower Meherdeep in a little stone hut. And he would come to RT at least once a day, if not twice a day. And you either loved Hiralal or you hated him. And he upset a lot of people there because of his contribution, because a lot of people didn't see it that way. And yet, yes, he is the very one. And I want to thank Shah Butler, and Fareshte Azar for being with us today. It's a delight to have you here. And please don't hesitate to add any questions that you might have. Thank you for showing your beautiful face, Fareshte. So good to see you.
Jai Baba, carry on. Thank you. Beautiful stories.
Where were we, Richard? You were going to ask me a question.
Yes, the last question I believe we started to answer was the story that you've told me before about what I call the 14 boys.
Oh, right. Give me just a second. I thought I had.
While you're looking, does anyone else have any questions or comments that might be pertinent, or just, anything about Hamirpur, not necessarily during the time Alan was there, but at any time when Baba was there? Are you ready again, Alan?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is from my journal, page 103. Baba giving darshan in the Hamirpur district. He passed through Mauda and was asked to give darshan there. It was not previously planned. Then Baba agreed. A Muslim approached Baba asking him to visit the Muslim orphanage. For this, he gave conditions. If Baba could wash the feet of each and every boy and will give rupees 19 to each and bow down, then Baba would give darshan. The Muslim accepted these conditions. And as Baba washed the first boy's feet and was bowing down to him, the boy snatched away his feet. Baba saved his head from touching the ground. Baba said, "This is God's head." Had I not stopped, this earth would have gone to Razatal. Anybody know what Razatal means? Well, someone can look it up, but it doesn't sound very good. I think that it implied that we'd all get canceled. So, Baba says, now I cancel the remaining darshan program for the entire district of Hamirpur. Pukar and others began weeping and begged Baba not to cancel darshan program. Baba said, "I will consider this after traveling some distance to the turning point, the village of Mohabwa. Oh, along the way to Mehawa, Baba got out to sit under a tamarind tree, and Pukar threw down his coat for Baba to sit on. Baba, I give pardon. I'll continue the journey today as scheduled, Baba said. We'll reach Meristana Meherwa today. In the morning, Pukar, you will have to bring me 14 boys of 14 years of age, and I will wash their feet and bow down to them, and I will give rupees 14 to each. If you are ready to do this, then my mood will be okay. Otherwise, I have no mood to have darshan. Pukar said, with your grace, Baba, I will accept your order. Baba said, what is the question of my grace? Anyone can do it with my grace. And inwardly, Pukar said, only with you. Grace, outwardly, I will do this, Baba. Only with your grace, Baba, inwardly, Pukar said. And outwardly, he said to Baba, I will do this. And then the journey recommenced. On the road to Meherwa, they reached a canal where a temporary bridge had been constructed so that Baba's car could pass. And when the car attempted to cross the makeshift bridge, the bridge collapsed, but the car nevertheless was seen on the other side. Pukar asked the driver how the car came to the other side from down up. And the man driving said, when the car went down with the bridge, Baba put his hand on his back, and all at once the car jumped up, and the driver couldn't explain other than this. Then everyone reached Baba on foot, and a great accident had been avoided by his will. We all were thankful for his grace. Pukar was near the car, and Baba pointed out to him a boy who was standing 40 to 50 yards away from the car. Baba gave gestures to call the boy to him, and Baba asked Pukar to find out his name and age. Guess what? He was 14. Then Baba asked Pukar to make note of this and ask him to be present amongst the 14 boys tomorrow morning. So Baba has given one boy, the other 13 Pukar will manage himself. And they tried the whole night to get the remaining 13 boys of 14 years of age. But after search a full night, could find only 12. In the morning, Pukar called all the boys to give them some idea of what was to expect from Baba, that they should not get uptight when Baba bowed down to them. Pukar perturbed where to find the 14th boy. So the boys gathered, and the 14th boy was standing right there amongst the other boys. So Baba bowed down to the boys, gave them 14 rupees each, and then Baba said that he was quite happy and that the darshan program would continue. So around 12:50 a.m. on the 10th of February, 1954, Baba turns to Keshav and through Erich says, "You don't know how lucky you are." Shortly after 1 o'clock, 1 a.m. on the 10th, Baba turns to Erich and has him write out. Baba had not given up the alphabet board yet. That was to come shortly thereafter. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. And he had Erich call that out a few times. So this is considered to be Baba's public declaration. One of the Mandali chimed in that it was, according to the Parsi calendar, that it was Baba's birthday. So Baba said, let's celebrate. And qawwalis and bhajans and dancing till about 4:30 a.m. And that was one glorious celebration. One very, very special moment in our Baba history. And one that is not well acknowledged by the Baba community as a whole. Perhaps in the future, Declaration Day will become more significant.
Thank you for that. I have, hopefully, I know time's getting a little low, but I have at least one more question, and maybe we'll have more time for more than that. Since you've been to Hamirpur, and you know that Baba symbolically called Hamirpur his heart. And maybe Ron, if there's time as well, might want to try to answer this question. What does Baba saying Hamirpur is my heart mean to you?
Well, Baba gave darshan. I've been told that between 52 and 54, that he gave darshan to 25% of the population of the district of Hamirpur. And so Hiralal's fiery nature is exemplary of the type of fire that one finds going to Hamirpur. And so we are really getting short on time. Did you want to jump in for just a second, Rod? Or
Well, the thing that I thought of is I'm sorry. What I was thinking is the idea of the heart being an emotional outlet, and I was thinking that the people there were connecting with Baba in a very emotional sort of way, whereas it's possible what he said about Andhra was being his head. Maybe there was a little bit more of an intellectual aspect to their faith in Baba. That's, it's just a speculation on my part.
Yeah, well, it goes to the fact that majority of the population of the district of Hamirpur are villagers, farmers, peasants, without a lot of education, some of them not even being able to read. Be that as it may, after returning to Hamirpur, after leaving Hamirpur, returning to the States, I started corresponding with Pukar. And it was decided that Pukar would come to Athens, Maine, and that we would hold a gathering in his honor. And the other pillars for the Maine Mela, which was held August 8th, 9th, and 10th of 1975, were none other than Ken Lux and James Whedon, another chiropractor, Dr. Jim. Jim was very skilled in many ways, and he designed the 40-foot geodesic dome that we put up as a pandal. And Pukar came with his sidekick, Sitaram, the Barfiwala, from Kanpur. And we had heard that Pukar had landed. Baba, of course, liked promptness. He didn't want you to show up early, and he definitely didn't want you to show up late. So here we are, as 2 p.m. approaches on Friday afternoon, and already about 75 of us were gathered there underneath the pandal. It was a gentle slope, and sometime I'll have pictures up. Pictures are buried on Hamirpur Tales, and we'll get them up and make them more visible someday soon. In any event, we had to decide, well, do we start on time at 2 o'clock? Pukar hadn't arrived. We'd heard that he'd gotten as far as Boston, but he's still not here. And we decided we would go ahead, and this was a Japa Mela. We took Baba's name from 2 p.m. on Friday to 3 p.m. on Sunday. And we had our own Japti hut at the very top of the hill. So Pukar comes in at about 2:05. We started repeating Baba's name at 2 o'clock. And all of a sudden we could see this dhoti from underneath the dome. The bottom of the dome was raised about 4 feet off the ground. Again, it was on a hillside, a slant. And so we could see these feet coming toward us, these dark brown, and what looked like a dhoti. And sure enough, it's Pukar and Sitaram. And they just come into the dome, sit down, and start chanting Baba's name along with us. It was just, it was precious. Unbelievable moment. After an hour, we went in procession up to the Japti hut, and we left 2 people in the Japti hut for 2-hour shifts, taking Baba's name. And then we were all gathered at the end on Sunday, and we went up in procession, picked up those 2 people, brought them down to the pandal, and concluded our Japa Mela. So we are now less than 4 months away from the 50th anniversary celebration reunion. And so this Hamirpur Tales hour, Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, we're hoping to build some momentum so that we can have an online celebration of that Maine Mela. August 8th, and maybe it'll swell to be August 8th, 9th, and 10th. Maybe we'll just do it on either the 9th or the 10th. It was the 9th and the 10th when the Chicago Players previewed the Net of Love and the Trees. 12 people came from Chicago. And I'm sure you'd recognize some of the names like Mark Brutus, Bill Haviland, Richard Reardon, Victor Seckler, Gary Kleiner, Yeah, Kleiner was there. Irwin Luck was there. So we are going to close. We've got about 2 minutes. Our next host has arrived, and Sally will be. Looks like Sally will be hosting the Arti, which will start on time in the next couple of minutes. So, any closing thoughts or words? I want to thank you, Richard, for doing a magnificent job hosting once again. And thank you, Betty, for opening the chat room and for staying with us. Thank you, Shaw. Thank you, Fareshte. And looks like either Marge or Jack or both are here. So we can close with the usual 3. Okay, ready? Avatar, Meher Baba,
Ki
Jai.
Jai. Avatar, Meher
Meher
Baba,
Baba,
Ki Jai.
Jai. Avatar,
Avatar,
Meher
Meher
Baba,
Baba, Ki
Ki
Jai.
Jai. Thank you, Baba.
Thank you.
Jai Baba.
Hi, Sally.
Jai
Hey.
Baba.
I'm gonna
Hello.
take a little break. I'll be back.
Okay. All right, I'm going to start the video
Can you
now.
stop the recording?
It stopped. Oh, it says not. It's did you stop it, Alan? Right? Because it's
You said you were going to.
the button seemed to be, it looked like somebody did. Oh,
Okay, stop
it's
recording.
off. It's off. It's off.
No.